Yes. Hello. Hello, guys. Am I audible? Hi. Could you please type in the chat if you guys can hear me? Hello. Hello. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Hello. Hi. Hi, Kalpana. Hi, Anuradha. Hi, Kishore. Hi, Vivek. Hello. Hi. Okay. Okay. Just could you guys give me another audio check, please, if everyone can hear me clearly? Okay. Great. Great. We will start off then. Fine. So, as you must be aware by now, we are here and I'm going to take a session. I'm going to take you through my journey, how I prepared for DSA, and I'll give you suggestions on how to prepare your own roadmap. And after that, I'll also try to explain my interview experience and what you guys can expect in an interview, what kind of preparation you need to take for interviews once you get shortlisted. And hopefully, by the end of the session, you guys will have a great time and you guys will have, some amount of extra knowledge. Okay, then. So, I'll be starting my slideshow. Is my screen visible? Can you please type in the chat if it's visible? If you guys can see my screen. Okay, fine. So, starting off, I'll give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Arunabha Mukherjee, and I recently completed my 2 month summer internship with Amazon. So, after the internship period ended, they extended a pre placement offer to me, which I happily accepted. And I'll be joining them as a SD next year. Currently, I am working as a mentor and instructor at Ikea Jobs, where I mentor students in their journey of learning DSA. And I'll be graduating next year from BITS Pilani with a degree in computer science and physics. So that's all about me. And let's move on to the main criteria, main focus here, which is DSA. So, what is DSA? First of all, when you guys start your journey of getting placed at the top tier companies as a software engineer, so everyone tells you that do DSA, solve DSA questions. But the first important question that comes into mind is what is DSA? So, DSA is basically data structures and algorithms. It's a topic in which we basically try to solve problems using logic through computer programming. The data structure stands for, you can say, containers in which we store the data in our programs so that we can use them efficiently and manipulate them. And algorithms are basically a set of steps that you follow to achieve the end goal. Whatever the problem is, in order to solve the problem, the set of rules that you follow. So that is DSA. Now, the second question is, why is DSA important? DSA is important because you can think of DSA as a sort of screening test. So when you apply to a company, how will the company know whether you are a good candidate or whether you're a good fit for the role that you're applying to? You can take this as an example. It can be a silly one, but still, suppose many of you have must have appeared for JEE exams. So, in order to prepare for JEE exams, you learned physics, you learned chemistry, you learned maths. So that was a sort of screening test which the IITs and the NITs held, so that they could evaluate whether you are an eligible candidate to join their institution or not. So similarly, DSA is just a screening test through which companies try to see whether you are an eligible candidate and whether you are a good fit for their company or not. Now, the third question is, in order to become a software engineer, is DSA enough? So, my answer to that question would be no. DSA is not enough. Obviously, it is the most primary and fundamental step that you need to take, and it's extremely important. It's an extremely important topic that you should cover. But will DSA do the job? No, it will not do the job. You'll need to learn certain other topics along with it. There are CS fundamental topics like object-oriented programming, DBMS, operating systems, which you need to have a knowledge of. And along with that, a certain amount of knowledge in development is also important. Because after all, when you join a company as a software engineer, what are you going to do? You're basically going to work on products, you're going to work on features, and development experience is needed for that. So if you learn a bit of development by the time you join a company, this is obviously going to help you. And along with that, obviously, you will be able to prepare projects using development, using front end, using back end development, and you can put those projects on your resume, which play quite an important role, as you'll see later. I'll cover that later. So, moving on. Oh, okay, fine. Some guys are saying that my voice is not clear. Is that the case? Am I clearly audible now? Okay, voice is low. Okay, fine. I'll just continue. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Sort of, I'll come to that. I'll talk about my experience as an Amazon intern. Okay, moving on. So, this session I have divided into three parts. The first part is the roadmap to DSA. How will you prepare DSA in order to get an internship or a placement at the top tier companies? And then after that, I'll focus on the DSA preparation that is required for the interviews. So often people think that I'll prepare DSA and that's it, that will do the job. But when you are applying to a company, the preparation of DSA that you need is a bit different to what you require when you get shortlisted for the interview. So once you give the coding round for a company, if you perform well, you will be shortlisted for the interview stages. And the way to prepare for the interviews is a bit different to how you prepare for a coding round. So I'll cover that. That'll be the second part. And in the last part, I'll talk about the interview experience. What kind of questions can you expect in the interview? How should you present yourself? And things like that. Okay. So first step, that is step one in the roadmap to DSA, is what I call the baby step, because this is the first step that you take when you enter the world of programming. Thing is that you need to choose a programming language. You need to choose a language with which you are comfortable. There are hundreds of languages out there, and you can do DSA in almost every of those languages. But personally speaking, when I prepared, I used C++ as my fundamental language, and I also had knowledge of Java. So these two languages I focused on, but primarily my coding language was C++. So uh, if you want my suggestion, I would say that you can choose Java or C++ to start your DSA journey, because the two primary reasons is these two are the most popular and famous languages out there. So you will get a lot of community support as well. So in case you get stuck somewhere, you will be able to resolve those doubts easily. And there is a lot of resources out there. You guys must know by now that you can go to any YouTube channel on coding and you'll find resources on C++ and Java. It's easily available. And apart from that, there are languages such as Python, JavaScript, and Rust, Go. You can do DSA in that as well. But again, my suggestion would be to go, if you are a complete beginner and you have not taken the first step, like you have not decided the language, I would suggest you to go with a C++ or Java. Now, the second step is, after you choose the programming language, you need to get acquainted with the syntax. You need to learn the basics. You need to get used to the syntax of the language. And by basics, what I mean is you need to know what are the data types involved. How do you initialize and declare variables? How do you use for loops? How do you use conditional statements? And what are functions? How do you declare functions? How do you use them in your code? So these are some of the basic things that you need to learn for the given language. And by doing this, you will gradually get used to the syntax as well. And you will be able to take the next step, that is enter into the world of DSA. So that is step two, entering the world of DSA and mastering the fundamentals. Now, what topics come under the fundamentals? I'll be discussing it here. The first thing that you will learn, the first data structure that you will learn is arrays. And when you learn arrays, it is extremely important that you understand how arrays function, what are arrays, how do you operate on arrays, And it's very important that you cover some of the basic array questions, and you can see that I've listed out some of the important algorithms here as well, like cadence and DNF. These are some of the algorithms which you should understand, you should read them, and also solve problems on them and see how they're implemented. Multidimensional arrays are also important. 2D arrays, matrices, there are questions on that as well, and there are some tricky questions too. So it's important that you get these basic things clear, and this is obviously going to help you as you go forward in your journey as well. Now, once you cover arrays, you need to come to a topic called time and space complexity. So often you have heard people saying, oh, what is the time complexity of your code? What is the space complexity of your code? So this is the topic that deals with that. Basically, time complexity is something with which, it gives you it gives you a certain standard by with the help of which you would determine how fast or slow your code is, whether your code is running fast compared to someone else's or is it slow. And space complexity also, it determines how much extra space, extra memory that you're using in order to achieve, in order to solve your problem, in order to achieve the end goal. So these come under time and space complexity. And again, there are many resources out there, many YouTube channels. And if you are someone who likes to read and learn stuff, then there are articles on GFG as well. You can easily go through them. They're quite fast, and it will give you all the required information. Okay, so now moving on to the next, we are continuing with step two only. These topics come under the fundamentals. So the next fundamental topic that you need to focus on is strings, and this is something that I have seen that people with experience also struggle with. So you need to make sure that when you study strings, you cover every inch of it. Like you should not leave out anything unless and until you are extremely clear with how strings operate and you solve a decent number of problems on strings. You should not move forward, because this is an extremely important topic. And I've seen people with many, like the people who have done completed DSA, appeared for interviews, but they still struggle with strings. It is a very tricky topic. It seems easy, straightforward in the beginning, but believe me, there are some questions out there which are quite tough and quite tricky. So this is very important to cover strings in details. And when you cover strings, these are some of the topics that you need to make sure that you cover. That is concatenation, substrings, anagrams, and lexicographical comparisons. So maybe people out there who have joined the live session today, some of you are new to the world of coding, so these might sound as jargons to you, but I would want you to make a note of it, and so that when you start your journey and when you come to the topic of strings, you make sure that you cover at least these topics. You understand the logic, you solve problems, and you also have a look at the theory. Okay. So coming to the next thing, that is, we are, as I told you, we are still part of, we can, as you can see in the heading, we are still in step two and we are covering the fundamental topics. So now this is a very important topic, that is recursion. Recursion and backtracking is an extremely important topic. And like I told, along with strings, this is something that people struggle to understand. But believe me, once you get a hang of it, once you understand how recursion is working, this is one of the easiest things. In fact, there are problems out there which, if you solve with recursion, you will be able to get to the answer with a couple of lines of code, maximum 4 to 5 lines of code. But if you solve it through some other way, you may require much more. You may require 40, 50 lines of code, which you can easily do with 5 or 6 lines of code in recursion, using recursion. So this is a tricky topic, but this is something, if you get a hang of it, it's extremely important and it's extremely easy. Like you will be having fun using recursion and solving problems. And backtracking is a topic which involves recursion. So make sure that when you're learning this, first you learn recursion and then you move to backtracking. Because if you go to backtracking without recursion, you will not be able to understand what is happening. Because backtracking, the core concept behind backtracking is recursion. So, and moving on, you can see the sorting algorithms that I've listed here. So obviously, if you tell someone that you know DSA, he or she will expect that you are well acquainted with the sorting algorithms. You should be like, if anyone asks you what is bubble sort, you should be like, you should readily code it. You should not take time. be it bubble sort, selection sort, insertion sort, merge sort, quick sort. These are some of the important sorting techniques which you should know. You should be very, you should be comfortable in coding these sorting techniques, and also you should know the time complexity and the space complexity involved with each of these sorting techniques, because that is very important. Often in interviews we have seen people being asked this question like, can you please explain the time complexity of insertion sort? And when you're discussing the time complexity, you should also know the best case time complexity and the worst case time complexity. People usually avoid these topics, they skip them, they think that it's easy, but it is very important that you cover each and every of these sorting algorithms in detail, both how to code and the time complexity and the space complexities involved. Okay. Now, coming to the searching algorithms, searching, as you can see, it has a wild usage in our real world as well. You search messages on WhatsApp, you go to Google and you search up topics, you search up info. So all these involve searching algorithms, and there are two basic searching algorithms that you need to cover. That is linear search and binary search. Again, very important. In fact, there are a certain set of problems in binary search which they are quite tricky, I would say. And if you like, you would not get at first that they involve binary search, but the solution to those problems actually need you to use binary search. So it's a very important topic again, and you need to make sure that you learn these things in detail. And unless and until a particular topic is clear, don't move on to the next one. Spend some time on it if required, but don't just skip it. Don't think that, okay, if I'm not able to understand it now, I'll maybe come back to it later. Don't do that, because the steps that I've listed out here, these are steps that you need to take in order. And this is not something that if you take these steps, I can assure you that you will get placed at a top company. But these are some of the tried and tested methods. So obviously if you follow them, this is going to make your journey easier, that I can assure you of. So just cover these topics one by one in order, and until and unless you are comfortable with one of them, don't move on to the next one. Spend some more time on it. Then moving on to the final topic of our fundamentals, that is object-oriented programming. Now, object-oriented programming, or OOPS, as many of you know it, it is not exactly DSA, but this is a different topic. But usually, when you start your DSA journey, this is something that you learn towards the end of the fundamental stage, because when you go forward to the intermediate stages, there will be questions, there will be topics which will involve OOPS. So it is important that you have at least the basic knowledge of it. What are classes, how are objects created, and obviously these four pillars of OOPS that I've listed here: inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism, and encapsulation. These are extremely important. And just there are very good articles on GFG. You can go and read them up, and you can see there are many playlists on YouTube as well, which will cover OOPS. And I would suggest you that go through them, whatever you're comfortable with. And if you feel that you're not able to get the amount of knowledge through YouTube videos and by reading articles on GFG, there are many platforms like AccioJobs as well, which offer courses on OOPS and DSA. So you can go and enroll in one of those courses. They'll take you in detail, and you'll get head-on classes there as well, 1:1 classes. So okay, and there is one more thing that I would like to point out here before I move. That is, when you are doing OOPS, make sure that the language that you have done DSA in, you do OOPS in that particular language. So if you're doing DSA in C++, you should do OOPS in C++ as well. If you're doing DSA in Java, make sure that you do OOPS in Java as well. But because, why am I saying this? This is important because when you will study OOPS, you will see that there are certain concepts which are a bit different in C++ as compared to Java. They are interpreted in a slightly different way. Some access modifiers, there is certain difference between them. But obviously, that's what I'll suggest. That if you're doing DSC in C++, you should do OOPS in C++ as well. Or if you're choosing Java, then make sure that you do OOPS in Java as well. Do not mix and match the languages, because you'll get confused then. Now, before I start the intermediate steps, I would open the session to some Q&A. If you have any questions, you can post them in the live chat. I'll try my best to answer them. We'll stop here for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions or doubts that you want to ask, you can type them in the chat section. Okay. Aditya Singh is asking how to prepare for off-campus placements. See, the preparation remains the same. There is no different approach that you are going to take. The process is a bit different. Obviously, if the company is coming to your campus for placements, it makes the job a bit easier. But if you're applying to off-campus opportunities, the best way to do is if you can get through referrals. If you can get some referrals, if there are some friends that are working at those companies, or if you have any connections there, try to get a referral and apply with your resume there. It will be like there will be a higher probability of you getting called to the interviews. And first of all, obviously, you'll have to pass the coding round. So most of the times what happens is, in off-campus placements, you get a lot of resumes and applications, and there is a filtration process going on, and most of the people don't get the link for the coding test as well. So it's really important that either your resume stands out, like you should have something special on it, you should have a very extremely good competitive programming profile, or you should have done some extremely good projects in order to stand out. Or the other way around is applying through referrals. Then there is a chance that you will get the coding round links, and once you get the coding round link, then the process is mostly similar to on campus placements. There's largely nothing different there. Okay. How to improve logic building. See, logic building is something that comes only with practice. There is no secret to it. The more you practice, like even in our school days, our parents and our teachers used to tell us practice maths, practice different problems in maths. Why? Because it used to have a large variety, and mostly there were certain problem types which you needed to get acquainted with before you could solve them. The same case is with DSA. The more you solve, the more problem varieties that you'll come across, and it will be easier to tackle them. And obviously, as you practice more and more, your logic will develop as well. Are DSA sheets important? Yes, DSA sheets are important, and I'll come to that. I'll cover that in the next sections. Okay. How much time is enough for DSA? So, see, how much time is enough for DS again is a very subjective question. It varies from person to person. Someone might require 5 months, someone might require 10 months, someone can even someone may even wrap it up within 3 months. But I would say that on an average, if you start your coding journey like from the very beginning, from the very basics, and you cover the fundamentals, you cover the intermediate step, then you reach the advanced stages as well, you cover the advanced topics, it should take you around 5 months, 4 to 5 months at least. That was the case with me. Okay. Okay, fine. I think I've covered most of the questions. Non-tech, okay. Someone is asking, I'm from non-tech background. See, again, whether you're from a tech background or whether you're from a non-tech background does not matter here. What matters is the skills and how you develop them. So maybe if you come from a tech background, things will be a bit easier for you, because obviously we'll cover a lot of these topics as part of your college curriculum. But if you come from a non-tech background, you will have to put in the extra efforts. You will have to put in the extra hours. That's the only difference. The steps and the procedure will remain the same. Whatever you need to cover, a person coming from a tech background will also have to cover the same thing. It might be a bit easier for him since he's coming from a tech background, but other than that, nothing else. Just put in the extra hours. Can you exactly explain your question? Can we do it with front end? What do you want to do with front end? Okay, how much time AccioJob is taking? So AccioJob has a course in which they teach you DSA and full stack development. It The course is for 6 months. So the benefit of this course is that you will be learning DSA from the basics to the advanced topics, and along with it, you will also learn full stack development. So that will help you create projects and improve your resume. You can put this. They'll help you develop a couple of projects and you can put them on your resume. So that is something good. Okay, so I'll be moving on now. I'll be covering the intermediate steps and advanced topics, and then I'll again come back to the Q&A session. If you have any more questions, you can post them then. So coming to the intermediate step, in this you can see I have listed the topics here. Some of them are related to data structures, and some of them are certain techniques or algorithms that you use to solve problems. The first thing that you go through is the first topic that you can see is linked list. Again, a very important and popular topic. It is extremely popular with interviewers. They love to ask you questions on linked list. In fact, I have had friends interviewing for companies like Microsoft who have been asked questions on linked list even recently. So extremely important topic. So you need to learn it thoroughly. Make sure that there are no loopholes. Practice questions and make sure that you cover it properly. After that, you have stacks and queues. Again, as important as linked lists, very fundamental data structures. In fact, stacks and queues are something. There are problems on stacks and queues itself, but these are something which are used to solve problems in the advanced topics as well. When you will go to graphs, trees, binary trees, there will be questions which are solved with the help of stacks and queues. So you need to very well understand how they are functioning, how they are implemented, what each method means, how that method is being implemented, what are the time complexities involved. Make sure that you cover all these things in detail, because as I told you, it's not only important for the questions that are on stacks and queues, it is important for questions that are on advanced topics which will involve stacks and queues. After that, you have DEX or doubly-ended queues. This is not a very popular topic. There are many people who have covered DSA, who have covered stacks and queues, and have not gone into doubly-ended queues. People usually mostly skip it. It's not exactly very important. Like you'll not find a lot of questions on doubly-ended queues, but usually it is sometimes used because the way this data structure is implemented, it's easier to manipulate the data. There are some added additional methods over queues, so you can use them to improve the complexity of your code. So it's mostly used to improve the complexity when it comes to doubly-ended queues. After that, you have hashing or hash maps. Again, hash map is the data structure and hashing is the technique that we use. It's very important, helps to improve the time complexity of your code. It is usually used with other data structures, and makes your code faster. Now, coming to the last three topics, that is, these three topics are not data structures. They're basically, techniques or approaches that you can use to solve problems, like the two-pointer approach, the sliding window, and the greedy approach. Uh, there is not exactly any set way to learn them. What I can suggest here is that like many people had mentioned in the chat about DSA sheets. So uh, you can have a look at DSA sheets. What you will find in them is that in DSA sheets, basically they divide the questions according to the topics. Like you complete one topic, you complete the theoretical part, you solve the basic questions, then you can look up the questions that are mentioned in the DSA sheets. Every topic will have 10 to 15 problems at least listed in them. So if you solve those problems, what is expected is that once you solve those problems, you will get acquainted with the approach, the technique that is being used. Initially, obviously, you will be having problems, so you can look at the solutions or take some hints for the first couple of problems, but slowly as you go on solving, you'll get a hang of it, how this particular approach or how this particular technique is being used. So the way to learn two pointer sliding and greedy, I would say, is to solve problems. And for DSA sheets, obviously there are DSA sheets offered by GFG, and there are YouTubers, influencers as well, giving their own DSA sheets. uh, all of them are good, all of them are important. Like, it's completely up to you which one you choose. But just one suggestion from my side is that if you choose a particular DSA sheet, stick to that. Don't go to different DSA sheets for every topic. Pick up any DSA sheet and complete that topic by topic. For every topic, when you want to solve problems, when you want to develop the concept, pick up problems from that DSA sheet. Don't mix and match your DSA sheets. Just pick up one and follow that. So now step 4 is to take a pause. Why am I telling you to take a pause is basically because you have completed by now a lot of topics in the fundamentals and the intermediate stages. We have covered at least around 12 to 15 topics, data structures, and it is extremely possible that you may get confused. Even when I was preparing for DSA, after covering the intermediate portions, I was confused. Like, there are so many data structures. Which one do I use for a particular problem? And for a given data structures also, there are so many methods. How do I remember them? How do I use them? Where do I use them? So the best thing is to take a pause here and revise and practice all those concepts. Revise the problems, revise the theory, practice the problems. And this is also a good time to start appearing for online contests on portals like CodeChef and CodeForces. Why is that? Because after completing the intermediate step, you have a decent amount of knowledge in DSA now. So with this amount of knowledge, it is possible for you to appear for contests, because there will be questions there involving these topics, and you will be able to solve them. Or at least if you're not able to solve them, you can go through the editorials or solutions after the contest is over, and you will be able to understand the concept they are using. And online contests are again important. Why? Because this helps you create a temperament for coding rounds. When you appear for placements or internships, the first step that you have to cross is the coding round for that particular company. And in the coding round, you will have, the major thing is the time constraint. You will have 1 hour or 90 minutes, or at max maybe 2 hours for some companies. And there will be some coding questions, there might be some questions on CS fundamentals, and you will have to complete all that within the given time limit. And also you have to make sure that the code that you write is error free. Because if you don't if the code has certain errors, they may be silly errors, they may be syntactical errors. Maybe you got your logic correct, but you missed a semicolon somewhere, you missed a bracket somewhere, and you're not able to figure it out. So these are very silly errors that people usually make in the initial stages. So this is something that you can improve by appearing for online contests. The more you practice on portals like this, you will be able to tackle the time problem, and you will be able to write more error free code. So this is the benefit for going for online contests on these portals. So moving on, the final hurdle, that is the advanced topics. These are the topics that you need to get to at the very end of your DSA journey. Like, many people have asked me in the past as well, like, how much DSA is enough to appear for companies. So for that, I would say is that if you have completed till the intermediate step, the intermediate stage, if you have completed all the topics thoroughly and in detail, then you can appear for interviews. Like, there are companies who stick to these topics and they don't go to the advanced ones. But obviously, if your target is maybe a FANG company or one of the top tier companies, then it is important that you cover the advanced topics as well. So the very first topic in the list is binary trees and binary search trees. Very important. And we like I have seen generally this there is a growing trend that top companies the top FANG companies or the top fintech companies like DE Shop, they usually ask questions on binary trees, binary search trees, and graphs in the coding round itself. These have become some of the popular topics, and there are questions on these topics in the coding round. In the first online coding round that will appear for, you will get, it's very highly likely for these particular companies that you will get questions on binary trees, binary search trees, graphs. Like for example, when I appeared for the online coding round for Amazon, there was a question on trees. So obviously it comes under advanced topics, so you need to make sure that you learn them if your target is top tier companies. And then there are priority queues and heaps as well. Very important topic. Need to understand how their function, how the time complexity is here, because people usually tend to ask a lot of time complexity related questions in priority queues and heaps as well, because these are data structures, and which help you to improve the complexity of your code in terms of time. Then you have graphs, like I told you, binary trees, binary search trees, graphs, very popular topics for current online assessments. Then you come to dynamic programming. Now, this is, I can say, is one of the toughest topics in DSA. Like personally, for me as well, this is where I have faced the maximum amount of problem, because dynamic programming is something where you can solve as many number of problems as you want, but there is still a possibility that you will encounter a problem, maybe in your online coding round or in your interviews, where you have not seen that problem before. It's very likely to happen. So the best way I can suggest here is that if you practice more and more problems, the probability of you solving an unknown problem that you're facing, for like unknown problem on DP that you're facing for the first time, the probability will be higher. There is no guarantee that we'll be able to solve it, because it is a very tricky and tough topic. And as I told you, there is a huge scope of forming new questions. Then coming to tries and string algorithms, the these are extremely advanced topics. Like if you don't have time, if you're short on time, you can skip them if you want. But if you have time, like if you have you have enough time in hand and you have properly scheduled your journey, then you can cover them. Tries and string algorithms, these are pretty advanced topics, and usually I can say that you can like you can expect that there will be no questions on these particular topics. Still, I have seen some questions on tries as well in some coding rounds, but mostly, like I told you, most of the companies avoid asking questions on tries and string algorithms. And the final step, like I told you, you can see in the heading, is becoming a pro. And how do you become a pro in DAC? By revising and by practicing. Revision is extremely important. When you cover a topic, and after that, maybe you solve problems on it, and then you go on to the next topic, and then you go on to the next and to the next. And by doing that, what happens is that if you do not revise the concept that you maybe learned maybe 1.5 or 2 months ago, it slowly starts vanishing. You will not be able to recall everything correctly, the problems that you have solved. You will not be able to recall the logic that you had used. So it's extremely important that you revise your old topics. Learning new things is important, but at the same time, making sure that you do not forget the things that you have already learned is also important. Otherwise, you will not be making any progress. You will be learning new things, you'll be forgetting the old ones. So after all, after a point when you reach the final stage, you'll see that you have almost forgotten what you have learned in maybe in your starting months. So it's extremely important that you revise and practice. And this is something that I used to follow while practicing. Like when I used to practice from problems from Dsa sheets, what I used to do is I used to use a color code of green, yellow, and red. And what do they mean? When I used to attempt a question, suppose I could understand the logic and I could solve it easily within maybe 15 to 20 minutes, I used to highlight that question in green. Then came those questions where it took me some more time to develop the logic. Maybe I took a couple of hints, and then I was finally able to reach the solution. Like it took me around more than half an hour, and I needed some hints as well. So I used to mark these questions in yellow. I used to highlight them in the yellow color. And then finally coming to the third category of questions, these were the questions which I could not solve. No matter how much time I gave and how much logic I put into it, how many hints I took, I was not able to come to the logic. So I used to mark them in red. And after marking the question in red, I used to go and look up the solution. There are two ways you can do that. You can either look at the official editorials, official solutions, or you can also go to YouTube, and mostly the questions that are there in DSA sheets, they are very popular questions. standard popular questions. So if you type those questions, there will be multiple hundreds of solutions that different YouTubers have put up. So if you are comfortable in learning something by watching videos, so that is something I would suggest. You can go up and look up the solution there. So I used to do that. I used to look up the solution. I used to go through those video tutorials, and after that, I used to code it on my own. And I used to make sure that when I revise these topics, I used to make sure that I particularly revise the questions that I had highlighted in Reddit, because these were some of the questions which I did not know, and I had to look up the logic. I had to look up the concept. These are questions where I learned something new. So it's important that when you're learning something new, you revise it so that it stays in your mind for the long run. The second thing is consistency instead of intensity. What do I mean by that is consistency is the key here. It does not matter how intensely you study. You may study and practice for maybe 10 hours a day for 2 days, and then you take a week off. That is not going to bear any fruit. On the contrary, if you prepare a routine for yourself where you dedicate around 3 hours every day, and consistently you do that for a couple of months, for 3 for 4 months, you will be able to see the results for yourself. Consistency is the key here. It makes the difference. Intensity is important, but it is not the key. So make sure that you're consistent. You study in small patches, in small durations, but make sure that you do it consistently. And these are some of the resources that I've listed here. You can refer them if you want. There's Lead Code, Interview Bit, and GFG. In GFG, you will get theory, as well as you can solve problems there. You will get the editorials as well. So these are some of the good websites that you can refer to. Lead Code is obviously for practicing questions, and Interview Bit as well. So moving on, before I start the second part of our session, that is Dsa Prep for the interviews, I would open the session to Q&A again. And if you have any question, you can put them up here now. Vishwat, I'm not in any career company right now. I'm still a student. I have a pre-placement offer from Amazon, so I'll be joining them as an SDE next year. I've completed my internship with Amazon as well. Yes, they will allow you to use STL, and there is no restrictions there. They will allow you to use STL, but again, like I told you, it's important that you understand how things are implemented in the backend, so you get a proper clarity of how things are working out. The more you understand the basics, the better it will be. Okay, my screen is not properly visible. Yes, I can see that. I'm really sorry for that. I think there is some internet issue in my area today. I'm really sorry for that. I am a 2021 batch pass out, but I have 4.5 years of degree. I've tried many companies with criteria. Yes. Okay. Taking a gap does sometime affect, but I think there will be companies out there which will focus more on your skills and your resume rather than whether you've taken a 6 month or a 1 month gap or 1 year gap. There are people coming back to the software industry after years of gap. So just focus on your journey. Don't be depressed, and concentrate on what you're doing. The journey is important. If you prepare well, if you work hard, I'm sure you'll get to your results. Okay, when I'll be dividing in parts and will give 4 hours daily, then how much time it will take in the preparation? Yeah. So again, like I told you, this is something that I used to do. Like I used to give 3 to 4 hours on a consistent basis, and like I told you, it took me around 5 months to cover all the topics that I've listed here. But obviously, covering all the topics is not important. Like I told you, revising them is also important. And if you dedicate maybe 3 hours or 4 hours to DSA prep, you can, if possible, you can squeeze out another hour or two in which you can focus on your development, like your written, like you want to learn Node, React, and SQL. So these are some of the things that you can do in that 1 or 2 hours of time. But the most important thing, like I told you, is to first be very thorough with your DSA. DSA is extremely important, extremely important. This is something on which the interviews are largely based. So make sure that you are good in that, and after that you shift to the development part. How to prepare for placement exam question? I'll come to that. I'll come to the interview prep. Yes, I am on LinkedIn. You can search up my name. The slides that I've prepared here, they'll you will be able to refer that. I'll ask them to put them in the description or the comment section. You can look up my name on LinkedIn. Which college? I'm from BITS Pilani. How important is CGPA? CGPA is important, not very important, but obviously it plays a role. uh, if you go with if you go in with a 5 CG, then obviously it will raise the questions of the interviewers, like whether or not you were serious with your college curriculum or not. But maybe you have a 6 or a 7 CG, but you are extremely good in coding, like you have an extremely good competitive programming profile, or you have done some extremely good projects, so they will make up for that. Some companies do have this restriction of CG cutoff. Like I can say for my college, when companies came for placements and internships, they did put in a particular cutoff CG. Like if you have to be over that if you want to apply. So I would say keeping a CGPA of 7.5 would be enough. Okay, I'll speak a little loudly if you're not able to hear me. I'll not be able to refer you to Amazon right now because I'm not working with them. I'll be joining them as an SD next year. So once I join, maybe you can stay in touch, and I'll have to look at your resume, obviously. Internship is important. Yes, internships are important. Specifically, if you are going in for placements, internship, if you have a work experience, then it will help your resume to stand out. So from that perspective, internships are important. It plays an important role. 2 months internship or the 6 month internship, both will do the job, whether it's a 2 month internship or a 6 month internship. Not a problem. 6 month internships are obviously better if you can get hold of a 6 month internship, because the company will have a larger amount of time to evaluate you, and also you'll be able to understand whether you're a good fit for the company. Because each and every time, what we think is that, why, like, how do I get selected by a company? But sometimes it's also important that after you join a company and you intern with them, you would like to see their work culture. What is their work culture? Is it toxic? Is it nice? Is it good? How is the work pressure? How are the team members? So it is more easily, you can do all that. Like, you'll have a better idea if you stay with that company for 6 months instead of 2 months. I am from computer science branch. AccioJob gym section has some good problems in it, but again, like I told you, solve those problems. But the more you practice, the better. The more, the merrier. Simple funda. The best way to do that is go on lead code, like I told you. Pick up any DSA sheet of any YouTube influencer you follow, or from GFG, and solve questions one by one. Don't go for paid internships. Those are not internships. Those are scams. You don't pay for an internship. The company will pay you. Full stack developer, yeah, it's good. Obviously, full stack developer internship is good, because after all, after joining a company in a software engineering role, you will be working on applications. You will be developing stuff. So full stack developer internship will obviously, it will be a good highlight in your resume? Okay, so I'll start with the next part, and I'll again open the Q&A session after some time. Uh, Moving on to the next part, which is DSA prep for interviews. Now, you have applied to a company, you have got the coding round, you got the link to the coding round, and you have appeared for that, and after that, you got through, you got shortlisted for the interviews. So how do you prepare then? The first thing and the most important thing is, like, this is what I used to do, is I used to go through the interview experiences of that particular company on GFG archives and the lead code discussion forums. By doing that, I used to get an idea of the questions that the company is currently asking. Like, I used to go through the interview experiences over the past 2 or 3 years, and those interview experiences, especially on GFG archives, they're in quite detail. Like, they properly tell you the number of steps involved in the interview process and what kind of questions they ask you in every round. So by doing that, I used to get an idea of the questions that I need to focus on the topics that I need to focus on, whether a company is more inclined towards asking questions from the advanced topics, or is it more inclined towards asking questions from the intermediate topics. If it is asking questions from the intermediate topics, which particular data structure or which particular algorithm is it more focusing on, whether the company is asking questions on CS fundamentals or not, whether the company is asking behavioral questions or not. All these things you will get an idea if you go through the interview experiences. And by going through that, you will be able to sketch out a plan for yourself. Like, okay, fine, I'm going to appear for the Microsoft interview, and Microsoft is asking questions on these topics. So first of all, I need to make sure that I revise all my concept in these topics, and then I'll move on to the ones that are not mentioned in the interview experiences. So it's very important that you go through interview experiences. Next step is step two, which is revise the questions that you have already attempted. Like I told you, when I solved my DSA sheet, I had marked my problems using a color code of green, yellow, and red. So it's time that you revise those questions. You have solved them already, but you need to revise them. And when you start revising, the first thing that you should start is you should start with the red questions, because these are the questions where you got stuck, where you could not develop the logic, and you had to take help. You had to look at the solution, and then only you could come up with the code. So it's important that you start with the red questions, because it is likelier that you will forget the logic that you developed for these questions. So it's important that you revise them first. Then you move on to the yellow questions, the ones which took a bit more time. Maybe you solved them using some hints. And then finally the green ones. These are the ones which you could solve easily. Like, you could develop the logic and you could solve it within 15-20 minutes. So this is the order you should follow: red questions followed by yellow, and then followed by the green ones. And during this time, it's important that you avoid learning new concepts unless it's extremely necessary, because this is something you may feel that, okay, if I learn this thing, it will be helpful for me. I should learn this, that also. I should learn this. Like, whatever is coming across you will try to cram it into your head. But it's better if you avoid learning new concepts, because they will make you more tense instead of helping you. You should stick to what you have already prepared and work on that, revise that, practice. The third step is cover the CS fundamentals, and while covering that, you should follow this order. First, you should be doing OOP, then DBMS, then operating systems, and finally computer networks. OOP and DBMS is important. OOP specifically because if companies, when they ask questions on CS fundamentals, the first go-to subject is OOP. And after that, some companies also ask questions on DBMS. There are very few companies who ask questions on OS and computer networks. I'm not saying that they don't ask, but the number of companies are quite low. So when you're preparing, if you have enough time, you can cover all four. But if you don't, then the major focus should be on OOP and DBMS. First, do go through OOP and then go through DBMS. Fourth step is resume vetting. Now, what is resume vetting? When you had applied to that particular position for that company, you must have applied through your resume. Now, you need to be very well familiar with the stuff that you have mentioned on your resume. So, now here comes the important thing. When you are submitting a resume for any job application, make sure that you don't include stuff with which you are not comfortable or familiar with. You may have learned a language maybe a year back. You may have worked on a project 2 years back, and you're not very comfortable in that. You don't exactly remember the details, the small things involved. It's best to avoid putting such things on the resume, because in case the interviewer decides you to ask questions related to them and you're not able to come up with a proper justification or a proper answer, it's going to have an extremely negative impression. It's going to create an extremely negative impression. So make sure that everything, every language, every concept, every project that you're putting on your resume, be sure that you're well familiar with that. And if the interviewer decides to ask you questions on that, you will be able to answer them comfortably without any hesitation. And also the projects that you have mentioned in your resume, go through them extensively. What you have done, why you have done that, what was the driving force behind it, why did you decide to work on that project, what are the tech stacks involved, is there any scope of future improvement or not, how will you implement any particular feature. So these are some of the things that are very important, and you should cover them thoroughly. And this is the final step, this is the fifth step, and this is something that you can do towards the end, maybe a day or two before your interview. You should go to Google and look up the company for which you're interviewing. Suppose you're interviewing for Amazon or Microsoft or Google, just go to Google, just look up these companies. What kind of products are they working on? uh, what is their goal? What is their motto? For Amazon, like I can tell you, for Amazon, they have certain things called leadership principles, and they focus on that a lot. They try to evaluate you in your interview. The way you answer their questions, they try to evaluate you on the basis of those leadership principles, whether you stand out on them or not. So these are some of the things that you need to have a prior information about. So look up the company for which you're interviewing. A very important thing. Now coming to the interview experience, uh, the first thing is that you can have a single or multiple rounds. Some companies have single rounds, but it's extremely rare. Mostly will be having multiple rounds of interviews, and they can happen on the same day, or they can be spread out over 2 or 3 days. So be prepared accordingly. Stay calm and focused. I know it's very hard to do that. I have been in that position, and I know how it feels. You'll be extremely anxious. There will be an adrenaline rush, but it's important that you stay calm and you stay focused, because if you don't get a good night's sleep before the interview, it's going to hamper you. Maybe because mostly because in a single day you might have 2 or 3 rounds, and every round can be around 60 to 90 minutes long. You will be asked questions, you will be grilled on topics. So it's important that when they ask you a question on DSA, you have that much, you are in a mental state to build up the logic and explain it to them. And for that you need to have ample amount of rest, and you need to stay calm. Give a proper introduction about yourself. Like, there are a lot of discussions that go around, like how you should introduce yourself in an interview. What I used to do was that I used to state out my name, my the city that I used to belong to, my college name, my degree, and the year that I'm currently in. And apart from that, if I have any hobbies, I used to mention that. Now, after that, usually what happens is the interviewer will ask you to introduce yourself and talk briefly about your projects. Some of the interviewers do that. Some will ask you just to give an introduction about yourself, and then they will ask you about your project separately. So if they ask you about your introduction, then you stop there. After you after you list out your name, your city, your college, the year you study, and your course, your degree, and if you have a good CGPA, you can mention that as well. After that, you can mention your hobbies, and you can stop there. Now after that, if they ask you about the projects, briefly explain the projects that you have done. I think 2 projects on your resume is sufficient. Speak some, like, why did you do that project, what are the tech stacks involved, what kind of features have you implemented in that project. You can say all these things, and after that, accordingly, the interviewer will ask you questions on your projects if they are interested, or they can directly skip to the DSA problem evaluation. But just keep this in mind. Whatever you say kind of gives a cue or a hint to the interviewer, and it directs him to his next question. Like, if maybe you have 2 projects on your resume, and you are more comfortable with one of them, then it's better you speak more about that project. So if you speak more about that, if you put more focus on that, it is highly likely if the interviewer is going to ask you more questions on your projects, it will be related to that particular project. So in a way, you will have to direct the interviewer on what kind of questions he is going to ask you. You are going to direct the interviewer by through your responses. So don't say something that I have used this tech stack or I am well acquainted with this technology when you are not. Because in case he decides to grill you further on that, believe me, you are going to be in a nightmare. Now the second step is after they have done with the introduction and the project discussion, it will take you around 15 to 20 minutes. In the first 15 to 20 minutes will be focused on that. And after that, they'll move towards problem solving involving DSA. Most of the companies ask you two questions. That is the usual practice. But there are companies asking a single question. There are companies asking more than two questions. So when you have a problem, when they ask you the problem, first go through the problem statement. What is the problem asking you to do? If there is any inch of doubt, any iota of doubt that you have regarding the problem, make sure that you ask the interviewer. The interviewer is not your enemy. Don't think that he is on your opposite side. Most of the cases interviewers are extremely friendly. So if you feel that you have a doubt regarding the question or is the language is not clear, if you do not have enough clarity, make sure that you ask the interviewer. The interviewer will give you enough clarity. He'll explain the question in detail. If test cases are not given, you can ask the interviewer to provide some sample test cases as well. Sometimes the interviewer will ask you to develop test cases on your own because this is a way of testing your skills as well. How well comfortable are you with coding? How well acquainted are you with DSA? And then after that, when you are thinking about the problem, think out aloud. You need to communicate with the interviewer. You need to make sure that whatever you're thinking, whatever approach that you're going to follow, the interviewer is up to date with it. Don't think in your mind. Whatever you're thinking, just speak it out. That I'm thinking of using two for loops, I'm thinking of using the stack data structure, I'm thinking of using trees, I'm thinking of using graphs. Whatever you're thinking, just think out aloud and make sure that you communicate your thoughts properly to the interviewer. Whatever logic that you're developing, that is very important. To and fro communication is extremely important in an interview. Now once these things are covered, like you the questions are asked and you solve them, and towards after the DSA part is done, some interviewers decide to test you on your CS fundamentals, like I told you. So mostly they'll ask you question on OOPS and DBMS. It's very highly unlikely that they'll ask you questions on OS and computer networks. I'm not saying that they will not. They can, but it is highly unlikely. Mostly people ask you questions on OOPS and DBMS only when it comes to CS fundamentals. And the final stuff that they can ask you is behavioral questions. In this section, they are most likely to ask you questions like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So when you say that maybe in your strength, you can say that I am a team player. I can work well in a team. I have a good high compatibility. When you say that, you just can't say that I'm a good team player. You need to give a real life scenario where you have showcased this particular trait of yours. Maybe you have worked on a project in your college where there are 4 or 5 members in your group and you coordinated well with them. So you need to give these examples, you need to give these arguments. Don't just fire blankly that I'm a good leader, I'm a good team player. This will not have any effect. You need to back up your statements with proper scenarios where you have showcased that particular trait of yours. Then, before I move on to the Q&A section, there is one more thing that I would like to focus on here. Usually, in most of the interviews, towards the end, before the interviewer wraps up, he's or she is going to ask you a very important question, that is, whether you have any questions for them. And it is extremely important that you do not say that you do not have any questions. You should not back out then. That no sir, or no ma'am, I don't have any questions, I don't have any doubts, everything is fine. It's very important that you ask some question there, because and that's why, like I told you during the DSA prep for interviews, I told you to look up your company. So when you look up your company, you will know the projects it is working on, the motto of the company, what it believes in. So you can ask questions on these things. Or maybe if you have not covered them, you can also ask questions like You can ask the interviewer how was his or her experience in the company, whether you are allowed to work on projects that you are fancy, whether you are allowed to work in the ML field, whether you are allowed to work in the development field. Can you change teams? These are some of the usual questions that people ask. And what happens is that by asking these questions, you are showcasing that you are interested in that company, you want to work in that company, and that's why you want to learn more about that company. So this has a very positive effect. So make sure that you ask this question. You can ask anything, but make sure that you ask. Don't back out. Don't say that I don't have any questions to ask. So this is the final thing, and after this, the interview will wrap up. And so, if you have any subsequent rounds of interviews, mostly the similar pattern will be followed. There are companies like Dsha, for example, they stick to a particular topic in a particular round. Like maybe they'll ask you DS in rounds 1 and 2, and maybe then in the final round they'll ask you questions on OOPS and CS fundamentals only. So this varies from company to company. There are some companies who ask you DSA and CS fundamentals in all the rounds. Mostly you can expect the behavioral questions, that is strengths, weaknesses, and ask inquiring about the company. You can expect them in the final round, the techno managerial round or the HR round. So make sure that you ask these kind of questions there. So that will brings an end to the session today, and we'll have the final Q&A session. So if you want, you can post some questions in the chat section. I'll be happy to reply. You are weak in DSA and you're in third year, so you still have time, right? Placements will happen in fourth year. If you are weak in something, the only way to get better at it is through practice, and you need to just practice more and go through the topics, whatever weakness that you're having, whatever doubts you're having, find someone who can clear them. Ask your seniors, ask your friends if they are good in DSA, or maybe enroll in some online classes. Okay, your friend has two offers, one from Amazon and one from Uber, but he's a bit unsure about which one to join. What would you have preferred if you were in this position? I can only comment on that if I was in that position. Since I'm not in that position, it's really difficult for me to comment. Your friend must be extremely talented if he has offers from Amazon and Uber at the same time. Okay, you have some experience in backend development, but you are not confident with your skills. Like your skills in backend development or your skills in DSA. Maybe if it is backend development, then maybe you can try out front end development. Then maybe try to shift your focus area, see if you're good at something else, and in the meantime, just keep on grinding DSA. Okay. About my Amazon internship. Well, my Amazon internship was for 2 months. It was from May to July, and I was working for a team at Amazon Hyderabad. Uh, my project basically involved the front end development for a particular product that they're developing right now. That product will be launched into the market sometime in the start of 2023. So I was given the responsibility of developing the front end for a particular phase of that product. You cannot join internship freely in Amazon, obviously. How will you do that? You will have to go through the process, right? You'll have to appear for the coding round, you'll have to go through the interviews. Process has to be followed. This presentation is okay. I have shared the team. I have shared the slides with the AccioJob team, and most probably they'll post a link to the slides in the video description or in the comment section. Can we speak in Hindi in interview? I would say that avoid doing that. Mostly, it will be better if you stick to English only. uh, Otherwise, I'm not really sure regarding this. Maybe you can ask the like try to communicate your thoughts in English, but if somewhere you are getting stuck, you can ask the interviewer whether he or she is comfortable in Hindi, and if they say yes, then you can explain that particular concept or topic in Hindi. but maybe you'll there is a high chance that you'll get interviewers who are not acquainted with the Hindi language. So in that case, that will pose a problem. Can I get a job directly? Like if you're getting placed, basically means you're getting a job, right? During your graduation, you'll be like before you graduate, you'll be sitting for placements, and if you're getting placed, you'll get a job. So that I don't exactly understand your question. If your question is that whether internship is important for placements, then I have addressed this question before as well. Internships do play an important role. It is not binding that you have to intern for a company before going in for placements, but obviously if you if you have an internship on your resume, if you have some work experience, then it is going to benefit you. Okay, someone has asked why DSA. DSA, because this was the very beginning of my session. I told that DSA is sort of a screening test. You can think of it like JE. In JE, you used to prepare for physics, maths, and chemistry. Why did you prepare for that? You prepared because JE asks you questions on physics, maths, and chemistry, and it's a sort of screening test for you to get a chance of admission at IITs or NITs. So similarly, DSA is a sort of screening test through which companies evaluate you. They try to see whether you're a good fit for their company or not. Can you speak? I have addressed that question. Can you speak in Hindi? How to get internship? You How to get internship? Like there are companies might be coming to your college for internship and placement sessions. So that is one way. Otherwise, you can apply off campus as well through reference. There is no internship on DSA. DSA is a topic. When you like, this is a topic which is asked in the screening test. If you're good in DSA, you pass the interviews, you pass the online rounds, and you get selected for an internship. In the internship, you will have to work on some things on which the company is assigning you to work on. How did I get my Amazon internship? Well, I got it through my college. Like Amazon came in for internship session, and I applied there. There was resume shortlisting, online coding round, and after that, interviews. So that is the process that I followed to get into Amazon. In BTech third year, how can I start my career in full stack development? You're in third year and you want to start with full stack development. There are many courses out there. You can go to YouTube. Nowadays, there are hundreds of curated playlists for backend development, front end development, full stack development. You can follow anyone according to your choice. If you're comfortable with any particular YouTuber, you can follow theirs. Otherwise, there are platforms like AccioJob as well. They provide you 6-month courses in which they teach you DSA from the fundamentals along with full stack development. So by the end of 6 months, you will be good in DSA, and along with that, you will have some projects on your resume as well through full stack development. What was my tech stack? Okay, my tech stack. This is a funny thing to say, but actually, the projects that I had listed on my resume were completely in the AI and NLP side, natural language processing. I had absolutely zero experience in development when I joined Amazon as an intern. And when I was interning for Amazon, I picked up those things. So it was a bit difficult for me. I had to put in the extra hours then. Like I had to do the job that was assigned to me, and along with that, I had to first learn. I had to learn React. I had to learn Redux, JavaScript, TypeScript, and all that stuff. Where can you get full course on DSC? You can get it on AccioJobs. Okay, you got selected in Infosys on 4th July 2022. That's great. So if you got in through your college placements, it depends. Like if you're joining, if you got it through your college placement, that means you must be in your fourth year right now. So you'll have to graduate first, and then you'll be joining Infosys. So you can expect the offer letter to come some around a month or two before your joining date. My LinkedIn profile, obviously, you can type up my name on LinkedIn. It'll be there in the slides. You'll easily find me there. In fact, I have a picture in the slides as well. That's my LinkedIn profile picture. What type of questions are asked related to projects? Like I told you, when you list a project, first of course they'll ask you to explain the project to them, why you have done that particular project, what was the motivation behind it, what are the tech stacks that you used. You can tell about that, what features are there in your particular project. They might ask you about any future scope of development, so you have to keep that in mind, how you can develop your project further. And if you have something in mind also, you know, think of how to implement that particular feature, because they might ask you, like, first they'll ask you what is the future scope of development, and when you say something they might ask you how are you planning to implement that. So you should be ready with an answer. If you're interested in signing up with AccioJobs, you can go to their portal. You can type in AccioJobs on Google. The first link that you get, you can go to their portal and you can sign up. You'll have an option. There will be course options there, and according to your interest, you can sign up for it. You are a BCom graduate from 2020. Yes, you will be able to join the IT industry. There is no ban on BCom students on joining the IT industry. You can absolutely join the IT industry, but again, you have to follow the due process, and you will have to, you know, hustle. You're in your second year, I think it's a great time to start preparing for DSA, because mostly in your third year you can apply for your internships. So in your second year, first 4 to 5 months, you can focus on developing your DSA skills, and in the second half you can focus on development, and with the help of that you will be able to make a project, and you can put that on your resume. So yes, projects are important, because you need to have something on your resume, right? Like I told you, in the initial 15 to 20 minutes, the interview is going to discuss your resume. So you need to have something on that for discussion. Okay, there are some topics, questions on how to prepare. Okay, fine. Just do one thing. I'll wrap up the session now. Like, if you have any questions, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Uh, I'll just, yes, this is my name here. I think it will show. The slides, the very first slide, it contains an introduction about myself, and you will find my name there as well. So that's my LinkedIn profile picture, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer your questions there. So I'll wrap up the session now. Thanks, people. Thanks, guys, for joining me.